Back to the Unleashing. I'm your host, Jared Beeler. I want to discuss something a little bit different today with a topic that I've gone on before back in the past and just briefly gone on. And that was during the video that I did, if you guys haven't seen it, the loading dimension. If you've never checked that video out, I encourage you to do so. But this is along the same topic, and I figured it'd be kind of a good step back from what I've been discussing lately, including volcanoes and end of the world stuff, which we know is coming, as well as the return of the Lord. And this is more along the lines of a warning and something to watch out for, especially if somebody happens to stumble upon this later or remember it, or anybody. It's kind of like a left behind situation. Possibly a scenario that could play out here, and that's kind of why I wanted to go over it, a warning, because I've seen it pop up recently again on Facebook and a couple other places, and I just want to go over this topic, all right, and give a warning to it for Christians to be vigilant and not to be gullible or anything like that and falling into different things, all right. And this is on an object that was seen back in the early 90s. What NASA describes as heaven, okay? And instantly, that's the rain going off here, if you guys hear it in the background. But instantly, I want to describe and tell you that I do not believe for an absolute second that this is heaven, if it's real or not, okay? But the story goes that in the early 90s, when Hubble was down and they couldn't get it working, they went up there and they repaired it. From December 2nd to, I believe it was December 13th, right? And as soon as they did, they pointed it out into space in a certain location. And the first images they got back were of a celestial area within space that looked like heaven, okay? Or what they described as that. Buildings and stuff like that, structures that are built way out in the distances of space, okay? And supposedly the story goes, one of the scientists or whatever snuck up one picture out that he was able to get out, and it hit the internet and the world as they shared it with like one of the tabloids or magazines, and the government came in, denied it, and quickly hushed the whole thing up. Unlike nowadays where stuff can get out and be saved and stuff like that, they were able to get in there and take away some of the pictures. The picture I have for this video that is supposedly from that article, tabloid reading, all right, I do not know if that's the actual one or not, because when I originally heard the story a long time ago, the picture that I saw was definitely different than this. So it makes me think that this is the only one that's left in circulation and possibly what was used or fabricated to give the example for the story in this news article that happened, okay? And not actually the real picture that Hubble had, which was over 100 pictures of close-ups and things like that in this area, all right? Later on that year in 93, they were photographing and looking at areas within Orion, the Orion Nebula, okay? So I believe that this area that they talked about, this heaven structure, right, was in that area, I think, all right? And I don't think it was a coincidence at all. I think it was the reason that they went up there, got the Hubble fixed in the first place. It's what kicked them into gear. And I don't think any of it was an accident at all either, because they would have to be precisely locked on to get images like that, and they were the very first images that they zoomed back. Somebody told them about it, and of course, if you know the occult of NASA and the Nazis and stuff that are in there, I'm guessing some fallen angels and stuff like that had disclosed this area to them, all right? And that is why they were able to lock directly on it, fix the mirror, and get that as their very first pictures, all right? And them also, and taking pictures of the nebula of Orion around the same area, also can be very telling to that being the area that this thing was found in, okay? Why I want to discuss this in the very first place is because when the tribulation happens and Christians are gone and stuff like that, when Lucifer comes down, Satan comes down, the Antichrist is ruling, and they've changed everybody over through the mark of the beast and stuff like that, I believe some of the promises and things that they're going to give the people, are going to be along the lines of showing them different structures like this, including this picture of supposed heaven, all right? Telling that they can bring it here, that if they're immortal, if they've joined with Satan, that they're going to experience this this thing, and it's a cheap knockoff or rip-off of New Jerusalem. Basically, Satan's copying like he always does, and them living in paradise and having whatever they want. Okay, will that happen? Absolutely not. But I do believe that this event actually did take place. Story goes that Clinton and Al Gore, the vice president at the time, asked for updates constantly on the situation at hand while they were discussing this and looking at it. And Pope John Paul II was doing the same as well, and they were all briefed on it and stuff like that. But they've all kept it under wraps for the time being and stuff like that. And of course, if you know, we have traveled to stars already, and we have technology to go to other places. Not the advancements that fallen angels and stuff have, but we have been able to break through those barriers and see that kind of stuff. And I truly believe that this structure is going to be part of the bribery that happens during the tribulation on, hey, look at this. This is what we have to look forward to. We just have to get God out of the way. If we can kill the Christians and everything like that, we have a utopia of our own. We can do whatever we want, blah, blah, blah. And this is going to fall along the lines of it. One of the warnings that I want to give Christians right now is if they ever stumble upon a story like this, to not fall for it gullibly and do the typical Christian dim-witted stuff where you're just the most gullible, deceived person that there is on the planet, which constantly frustrates me, and I've discussed multiple times before, and to fall into that. All right, I want you to take a look at the universe that we're in. If you can grasp for a second this third dimension holodeck that we are actually living in right now, and the whole concept of God being able to hold the universe in the palm of his hand, and this being a matrix of sorts, a computer program of its own that we're used to be, that it's being used to train us and eventually to graduate from and pull out the universe outside of it, God's realm. The things that we're going to see is so much bigger than anything with inside this, which is, I don't care if it's half the size of this universe in the third dimension. It's just ridiculously small, and I encourage you not to be bought off with anything like that where you would think that NASA has got a picture of actual heaven or anything like that, or that it's coming from this dimension, because God can open up any dimension in the realms and stuff like that. And not only that, it does not fit the structures and the structural design, which is more square, that Revelation speaks of, with New Jerusalem coming down, which is around a couple thousand miles wide, all right, and height and width. All right, and not this gigantic city out in space, which looks like something else completely, entirely different, right? Now, the connection with this thing and Satan, all right? I want to point this out in Scripture because he's already done it before, all right? I totally believe that he already had a setup before, and it was possibly Rahab between Jupiter and Mars, okay, which is now the totally destroyed shotgun asteroid belt that happened at the same time the flood happened, all right? I know they were on Mars and other places, and they still are there amongst the stars, all right? Now, is that discussed in Scripture? Yes, it is. In different places, I believe it's hinted at multiple times. I want to go to Obadiah real fast. Obadiah 1, obviously. And I'm going to read verses... We'll start at 3. The pride of thy heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the cleft of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou shalt exalt thyself as an eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. All right, that's Obadiah. And speaking of Satan, all right, there's a reference there about Satan and him being amongst the stars, setting his nest upon high, all right, and him thinking that he's invincible, and God saying, no, it's not going to last forever, I'm going to bring you down. All right, if you've seen the video that I did on the loading dimension and the aspects of it, this computer program roughly that we're in, and the higher beings, angels, fallen angels and stuff like that, being able to access materials and load it, bring it out, and magicians and things like that have light access to it, from demons and things like that, where they're pulling sandwiches and stuff like that out of their hands. The structural buildings that can be built from this, we do not know the size of it. Could Dyson spheres be created? Very well so. And if you're going to be fooling mankind into being an advanced civilization that put us here like aliens, what the story's going to be, part of the deception, and you're going to say that they're light years ahead of us in technology, you're going to be able to show us in a deception, things like Dyson spheres and stuff like that, all right? you would also be able to show structures this size, half the size of a galaxy, the size of a star, cities and things like that. These huge tabernacles and places built among the stars, right, that the fallen angels would have access to and be making and creating. What kind of stuff can they pull out of this loading dimension? The implications could be absolutely huge, all right? And that's what I'm pointing out. I totally believe that this is not anything godly at all, and I think that it was totally created by the fallen angels, all right? And it might be very well the very habitation that's being referenced here in Obadiah, okay? And this habitation, which was shown to NASA back in '93 in December, all right? They took pictures and stuff like that, is just more of the allure, the promise that if you stick with Satan and stuff like that, he's got big things planned and it's going to be glorious and all this other jazz, and it's not at all. For Christians not to be deceived by it, and if you were to happen to stumble upon this or this deal as an encouragement, oh, just take the mark of the beast, oh, just follow in the plan, it's going to be so much better, blah, blah, blah. Here's some of the things we have to look forward to. You can see where the deception comes from right there. And why I want to warn about it and kind of point this out in this discussion, all right, since I've seen it pop back up again recently and things like that. All right, I totally believe it's real. I think they do have big-time habitations out there, and I definitely think that the story was real, that it did get spread around for a while before it was hushed back up again in the early 90s, okay? And I definitely think the occult is what pointed them in the right direction, and they got the first lock on directly on it when they did, because they were already told where the location was at. And I think that the Orion Nebula is very telling in the same time that fits with the story. Don't forget, Orion, all right, in cultures and occult, including Egyptians and stuff like that, that they have the pyramids and things set up after, is where the gods, right, fallen angels, dwell from, all right, and where they come from and things like that, and they're always pointing back to. So for this gigantic city in space to be in that location, it doesn't surprise me at all. It seems like it's totally there. Another thing is, with this gigantic city, it is like, it's like fire to moths for the New Agers. They are drawing into this stuff, right? And that's very telling in itself too. Not the Christian aspect, but the New Age, which is what, with aliens, fallen angels, the deception that's going to be part, the New Age whole movement and stuff like that. They're into it as well, and I've seen them with this thing get drawn right to it as well, and that's very telling to me too, that there's darkness in this big time, and it's going to be part of a huge deception and stuff like that. Don't forget in Mormonism, all right? Their plan is not outside of this dimension, not outside the confines of this structure that we're in, but within it. Their heaven is on a planet called Kolob and stuff like that within this dimension as well. More deception. God is so much bigger. Do not put yourselves in the confines of this dimension. When we step outside of this test, if you pass it, all right, with God, it's so much bigger than anything you possibly comprehend. Everything else is just selling yourself short, all right? Never forget that, okay? Another thing is, all right, in the early 1800s, Ellen G. White, all right, had hundreds of visions, but one of them was she was looking up at the starry sky at night, and why she was looking in the Orion direction, the nebula there, and she saw the fabric of space fold back like clouds, and she was told that the New Jerusalem would come from this location, it would come out of it, all right, to Earth. And that's very telling too in another way, the same way that I was just speaking of Mormonism as well. If you know who Ellen G. White is, or if you've heard that name before, it's synonymous with Seventh-day Adventism. She's their leader, the same one that started that and helped that movement to take place, all right, with her visions and things like that. And of course, if you know anything, if you've read Galatians at all, any of those 1800 founding religions that borderline Christianity but have split off in their own way as false religions, okay, and you need to be very weary of. So for her to see something like this also coming from Orion, and it being a false religion as she starts later, very, very telling as well, that what she saw, what she was showing, is along the same lines as what Joseph Smith was able to see and stuff like that when he talked to the two angels that he believed to be Jesus and God. And I don't think that it was an accident at all, nor do I think that it was made up. I've heard the story before that a lot of it was made up and put together. The way that that religion has moved forward and stuff like that, the same way watching Hitler make his moves and stuff like that, there is an outside source of help that's taking place and making it grow and do the way that it is, as it's structurally designed to build their building, remove the cross of Christ, and keep the Osiris phallic that they have inside their structures and buildings and stuff like that. You see the occult and the manipulation that takes place. And it's the same thing with other religions and stuff like that. So I find it very telling that Ellen G. White, founder of the Seventh-day Adventists, also had a vision as well that she showed, or was showing, New Jerusalem coming out of the Orion Nebula. All right, is it possible that the plan is, it's told to mankind from Satan, that they're going to bring this heaven here? And an example would be Transformers 3, when they're bringing Megatron, the planet, to Earth through those portal devices and stuff like that. Can they do stuff like that? They've got tech to do all kinds of crazy stuff. And the way that we look at movies and stuff like that as the Illuminati putting things out, don't think that Michael Bay is innocent, all right? He knows exactly, he's a part of the occult as well too. So for them to put the stuff in movies like that, it's very telling that that's part of their original, part of their plan that they have in the future too. And this heaven that they saw from the 90s is something that they're promised or told that's eventually going to be brought here and merge, which is very similar with the biblical story of God, because Satan's a huge copycat, okay? So some interesting stuff to think about, all right? I know this is kind of an interesting topic, but I just kind of wanted to go over it, give you guys some thought and some insight, and I never know when it's going to help somebody out later on along the lines, and if they're in a situation where they could be bribed, they can instantly say, whoa, I've heard about this before. So that's why it's always good for me to talk about different things and stuff. They do have structures, fallen angels, aliens, what we call them, and stuff like that, that are literally huge. You can't even imagine. The 2.5 mile UFO that I saw, it's nothing in comparison to some of the stuff that they got. Ships the size of planets, the planet Earth, all right? Huge. So for them to build star size, almost half solar system, galaxy size cities and stuff like that in space, it's not beyond the realm of possibility, okay? The tech that they have access to, all right, inside this universe, this matrix, all right? Them being higher beings, being part of the program system, access to it. It's like being unplugged from the movie The Matrix, all right? They can do things that we can't, because we're still going through the testing phase before we're brought out, given new bodies with unimaginable capabilities that God has in store for us and things like that. Don't ever sell yourself short, all right? What God has planned is so much better than anything you can possibly imagine, all right? But it is a very interesting topic, and I thought it would be a nice little change up here, because I've been thinking about it over the past week or so after I saw it pop back up again. And don't be deceived at all. Heaven's not coming from this dimension. It doesn't need to. God owns all of them, and when he brings it out, when he brings out the hidden Jerusalem and stuff like that, that thing's hidden away in his own architectural chamber room that he can use and bring out whenever he wants. It doesn't need to be coming from this structural confine of the third dimension, all right? So when it does come out, it's going to be when there's a new heaven and new earth and everything like that. Not this one, not this universe that we're in right now. So just keep that in mind, all right? But it is an interesting topic, and I definitely think that what was shown, what is seen, what they know about on the insiders is part of the old nestiness of Lucifer in the stars. And there's plenty of different scriptures where it goes back and it speaks on that at different times, where there's like a hint of Satan being in the stars, right? Jeremiah 49:16, thy terribleness have deceived thee, and the pride of thy heart, O thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, the holdest the height of the hill. Though thou shouldest make thy nest as high as an eagle, I'll bring thee down from thence, saith the Lord. All right. Job 39:27-28, doth the eagle mount up at thy command, and make her nest on high? She dwelleth, abideth on the rock, upon the crag of the rock, and the strong place. All right. And there's also the reference to Rahab being destroyed by God, all right, in Job, and some of his nests in the stars that were mentioned before, okay, in the past times. How long does it take to build something like this? It could. I have no idea, honestly. I don't know. They can move fast, and there's always the gray time possibility. I've discussed it before when I told you that time was folded out from the middle, all right? If they can travel back into time like that, they could technically go back and work on structures that would deceive people in the future, and also allure to the time that they had been here for eons of time when really they haven't been. It's been a 6,000 year plan within this dimension. All right. Do I believe the fallen angels, the angels, and everything else were created far before that in times past? Yes, I do. But this dimension, this phase that we're in right now during this, I believe it's 6,000 years old, and I think that science and everything else proves it if you know the truth about it. All right. I don't believe in gap theory at all. I want to point that out. But anyways, interesting topic. Thought I would share it and a little bit of insight and stuff that I have on it. It's very interesting. The occult is also looking for a home, a heaven, structures and things like that. Other religions that I know personally to be false and off the path to also be looking within this dimension and these confines and around the Orion Nebula, which fall into different stories and why it's going to be so easy to deceive people during the tribulation when the false religion comes together, bringing them all united, how they're all the same. Egyptians, Greek, Babylonian, sorceries and things like that, all talking from their past and histories of Orion, fallen angels, aliens, whatever else, all being the same thing. Ellen G. White from Seventh-day Adventists pointing to it, all right? The deception is going to be huge, all right? And people are already deceived as it is. So always be on the lookout. Don't forget, I only saw 0.5% of people going up in the rapture, right? And there's 2 billion people or so that claim to be Christians. That's a lot of dumb, gullible people, okay? So pay attention to that and always watch out. It's something that it bothers me. And don't fall for that. Have that relationship with God. If you're walking with Him, if you're staying close, He's going to show you. He's going to point things out. Just like in April of 2016 when I was praying about Trump, and He literally told me on the spot, "Let the dead bury the dead." And I'm like, oh crap! But I didn't get that heads up if I was following somebody or not having a personal relationship with God. And you can all have that too, which is why I always encourage you to read the Bible and develop that relationship. Don't follow people, including myself. Okay? Keep that in mind. I'm not looking for people at the end of this that are following me, and I'm not looking back at all. I'm looking for those that spread out, had their own personal relationship, and are now standing equally from side to side. All right? Do not be a groupie. Always remember that. All right? Anyways, interesting topic. Wanted to share it, get it out. Hopefully it gives you some insight or something to think about, all right? Pray about it, talk to God about it, but whatever you do, don't be deceived. What God has in store for us is so much bigger than any galaxy-sized city or anything like that out in space. Always remember that, all right? It's just cheap knockoffs. Don't fall for them. All right, God bless. I'll catch you next time on the Alicia, and I'll see you in the air. Bye.